Welcome, everybody, to our streaming series, Voice Your Soul, with DCASE, Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events in Chicago. Glad to have everybody here. Pardon me. We have a special guest today who is from West Africa and has been living in Chicago for quite a long time and blends her music from the West African area to Chicago and all over the world where she's traveled, where she's picked up other musical ideas that she presents. Before we get started, however, I would like to first introduce you to Susan from DCASE. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And Susan, hey Susan, how are you today?
Fantastic. So I bring you greetings from everyone from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. We miss seeing you. We're very sad that the Cultural Center is closed, but we're glad that you are home being safe and that we are able to meet in this way. So this is our second in our Saturday series of Meet an Artist, and we will eventually reopen. In the meantime, we are here for you, and we want you to come in and enjoy this recording, which will also be up on our Facebook page. So thank you, Ugochi, for being here, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so hi, everybody. Pardon me, I'm Jeannie Warsaw-Gazga, and a little bit about my background. I worked in the music industry for well over 20 years for Sony, RCA, Elektra, Virgin Records, promoting artists such as Janet Jackson, David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, Lenny Kravitz, et cetera, et cetera. And now I started a nonprofit organization where we bring curriculum units to schools in the Chicago area using social justice music from the 60s and 70s to teach about the civil rights movement and the social protest movements, et cetera, et cetera. So before we get started, a couple of quick things. Just want to remind everyone to please be courteous in the chat room. We definitely are excited to see what questions you have for Ugochi. And don't forget at the end of this broadcast, if you like it, to follow MeMA-Music on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Appreciate that. Okay, so as I mentioned, our guest today is Ugochi, and her sound has been described as lively, energetic music that makes your feet move and heart think. She's written poems that have been honored by internationally renowned organizations like Apples and Snakes in the UK. Ugochi has also shared the stage with many established artists such as Common, Eric Benet, John Legend, Femi Kuti, Edwin McCain, Maxi Priest. The list goes on. Shaggy, Wayne Wonder, Stephen Marley, Toots and the Maytals, and it goes on and on and on and on. So let's just bring her on so we can find out more about her and how she writes and her influences. Okay. Hi, Ugochi. Welcome.
Hi, Jean. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing really well, considering, things are very uncertain, but I feel good to be alive.
Yeah, I know. Good. And we'll talk about that too, definitely. So we just mentioned that you are from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And your music, how would you describe it? Since you are from West Africa and there's so much wonderful music throughout actually South and West Africa. How would you describe your music?
Oh, South, West, East, Africa is full of
right? Totally.
My music as inspired by Africa and the diaspora. So I feel like, there are so many people like myself who are children of Africa, but we live in the world. And that is basically a big inspiration to me. When I'm creating, I'm thinking of my ancestors. I'm thinking of my friends. I'm thinking of the future, the children that aren't born, the world that I want them to kind of be a part of. So there's a lot that goes into the creation of work. And I'm mostly influenced, though, by pioneers and people who have taken and created whole genres out of movements.
Right.
So I'm
Okay.
actually very influenced by people like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Fela Kuti, Angelique Kidjo, Miriam Makeba, Aretha
Oh, I
Franklin.
love her.
The music, good music is
Good
no
music.
boundaries. Yeah.
You're also mentioning within, these artists that you're mentioning, we have to obviously bring up the fact that the lyrics are just incredible.
And we'll have to talk about the fact that I started my whole artistic journey as a poet.
Yes.
And so lyrics are very all important for me when I'm writing or when I'm creating anything, a song, a poem. The lyrics have to stand on their own before, anything else. So
yes.
Thank you for mentioning that.
No, absolutely. And that's what we want to talk to you about. So let's go back and ask you a couple of questions about writing first.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started, I suppose when you were young, which came first to you, writing or singing? Did you find yourself writing or did you find yourself kind of walking around singing?
Good question, Jean. When I was young, back then when I was first being introduced to everything, it was music. My parents were Nigerian. They came from a whole nother country and they were here. And the way that they felt like they were present in their space and in their land of origin was through the music. So the music was my first invitation into this creative space. And my parents were international, so the music was international. I used to listen to songs from all over the world, and I was singing Spanish songs before I even knew what it meant. I'm like,
oh, cool.
And I'm like, okay, I just love the feeling of it. So I learned to love music from all over the world, and it was music, singing in church. That was really musicality. That's where I honed my musicality, and I was a very shy child. So that was like standing in front of a firing squad trying to sing in front of church, but it gave me the practice. And so then I was more comfortable being in space to sing, and it also kind of gave me a little spiritual backing to know that music that has some type of emotive quality as far as higher power, that music, how it could move people. How if I use certain words or certain phrases with certain sounds, how people could get the spirit. I mean, it was really a powerful lesson to me as a young girl.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about protests, I don't think there's ever been a protest or a revolution without song.
Right.
So I agree with you. So music came first, then you started to write. So tell us a little bit about your writing process. And I'm sure it's probably changed from when you were young, but everybody's got their own thing. Some people they carry a notebook with them and they're writing constantly, or they talk into their phone, or they see a word on a sign and, I got to write that down. So what's your process?
All of that. That's so funny. All of those are my process on where I'm at. So when I'm driving and I get an inspiration, sometimes I pull over, because I'm also the person that rolls with the journal in the purse. Okay. So I'll either pull over and try to capture that word or phrase, but if it's music now, I have to record it because that's the way I can actually keep the melody and the feel of what I'm trying to do. So all of these technological devices, they come in handy when you're on the road or when you're on the go and you have an inspiration, because inspiration doesn't wait for you to receive it. Like when the inspiration comes, if you don't with that inspiration, you lose it. And it may not come again. So I've learned when the inspiration comes, I've learned to be very gracious and just surrender to it. And so that's it. I feel like I use all of the devices. For poetry and writing, I'll just mostly jot it down, or I even use my phone sometimes when I don't have access to my notebook and just write notes in the phone. I do that a lot. I send myself emails. I send my pieces over email just so I can have it electronically. Oh man, it's just so many things. So I love writing in a journal. That's my first process. I think I started doing the computer typing and let me get on the computer. But I've had so many terrible situations happen where the computer will just cut out or I'll lose everything. So I like to start with the journal, and then I'll take it to the computer. And then if anything gets wiped out, it's okay. I've got the original backup version in my journal. So that's been what life has taught me as I got older.
Right. Now, you just mentioned earlier too that you've got this inspiration for teaching young people, especially with the way the world is today.
Yes.
So when you are writing, or you see a word or a phrase or something comes up, is that what you're thinking about right away? How can I take this lyric and write this poem or spoken word or song and reach young people?
I think what I'm always thinking is like, I loved my childhood.
Cool.
I really loved being able to go outside, be able to enjoy this environment, the earth, and it was a safer.
Yes.
So I try to bring elements of that. And then there was a certain level of consciousness and morality that was just kind of ingrained in the art, in the movies, in the music, in the TV shows, cartoons even. You would see a moral at the end of it. And it's just, we're not there anymore. So I've decided that a lot of these young people just don't have the understanding of basic humanity, because we're not sharing that in a way. So I try to bring morsels of that in the music and try to make it in a way where it's not corny, because being kind is corny to some people in a world where narcissism is exacerbated and people are always thinking of themselves, and there's something called a selfie that is celebrated. So I feel like in those cases,
true.
I try to get people to understand that being empathic, caring for your brother or sister or cousin, or even that person you don't know, is actually a greater quality than people fawning over you, or you idolizing people or being idolized. You know what I mean? I feel like just trying to bring it back to a certain level of humanity, because I think we're losing our basic humanity.
I think we are too. And I think that's a really great message for young people, because we are really caught up in social media. And I think if you look back at some of the artists that you brought up, like Bob Marley and others, we don't seem to have a lot of those artists today that are writing music with lyrics that are positive. Yeah. So you carry a notebook, you write stuff down. What about, and that's mostly for poetry and spoken word.
Yes.
So what about when you're writing a song? Is there a different process that you go through, or are you still kind of, you work off of the words, but then what comes to you with regard to the melody? And because, you're doing two different, pardon me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but with poetry, it's a little bit different. There's still performance poetry, but with a song, you've got this element of instruments and other things. So how do you come up with a melody?
Well, most times a melody is wrapped around my melody. So when I'm actually writing a song, there's a melody within the music and within the speaking of it, that brings the vocality and of the singing. So I feel like there's already a melody there. So now I'm listening for the background music that is the bed for this melody. And so that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for what key is it going to be in? Where am I really trying to hit people? What chakra? What am I trying to get them to feel? Where am I trying to get them to feel it? So this is what I think about when I'm in the process of creating some work. And so after that, I'm blessed. I'm very blessed to have musician friends who have been on this journey with me, and they have they offer me the opportunity to say, what do you got there? And so I sit down with them, and then I try to plot out how we can make this even more magnificent. And they have brilliant ideas, and we put it all together. And then before we know it, it's something magnificent. So I'm very grateful to be in a community where I can collaborate with people.
That's what I've heard from other artists too about Chicago, which is really pretty cool, because, I think a lot of musicians always feel like, well, I have to go to LA or New York, but I don't think that's really necessary. So let's do this. Let's take a look at a song and video clip of yours called Taboo. Let me go ahead and pull that up for a quick second here, and then we'll talk to you right after just about your inspiration for that song and the video. Okay?
Thank you.
The sight of you puts a smile on my face and a song in my heart. I wish I could get a little taste, but the worst part is that I must nip this love in the bud before it can start. It's taboo to feel the way I feel for you. All I can do is try to hide, make subside these waves of love I'll never ride. Cupid's dart went through, and now I must admit that I've been hit. Don't know what else to do but be in love, that's taboo. And though I've tried to make it go away, tried to ignore those thoughts of you that beg for more, I can say that we're friends, but the truth once it bends just tends to make me pay. One way or another, with fondness that never ends until you be my lover, that's the way. It's taboo to feel the way I feel for you. All I can do is try to hide, make subside these waves of love I'll never ride. Cupid's dart went through, and now I must admit that I've been hit. Yes, this bit of juju has born a love that's taboo. And I'm willing to put aside my pride, endure the tide till I'm satisfied. I'm willingly along for the ride. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I'm willing to put aside my pride, endure the tide just to be your bride. I'm willing to open my heart wide for a love that's refreshing and new. The sight of you puts a smile on my face and a song in my heart. I wish I could get a little taste, but the worst part is that I must nip this love in the bud before it can start. Cause it's taboo to feel the way I feel for you. All I can do is try to hide, make subside these waves of love I'll never ride. Cupid's dart went through, and now I must admit that I've been hit. Don't know what else to do but be in love, it's taboo. Yes, this bit of juju has born a love, it's taboo. Just between me and you, I'm in a love that's taboo.
Wow. Oh my God, what a beautiful song. You have such a beautiful smile. Oh my gosh. So so first of all, was that a true story?
Well, it's a story within a story. So it was a larger story that I was trying not to be so obvious in telling, but the song is called Taboo. So really it's about Black love. And so the way that I saw it was like trying to love yourself and trying to love someone else. And it's like you're trying to find love within yourself and you're looking for other people. So I was just trying to kind of share that, and just how we can see love in each other, and just show another side of a love story, something of a triangle, but the person is really looking for love in themselves, and they're finding it in reflections of themselves in the opposite sex. And it's also being able to say, oh, I can find, it's taboo to love, for a Black woman to love a Black man and say, you know, this is real love, this is real positivity, this is real building, and not always tearing down. So it was a story within a trying to tell.
Very powerful. So we have a question in the chat room. We love seeing Chicago. Who decides what locations you use?
Oh, that was a complete band decision. I came up with the concept, and so first of all, I just want to shout out all the great guys in the band that were in that video. We were literally at rehearsal. That's Sean Scott on drums and Sean Wallace on keys. That was Jeff Harris on bass, and so that's Deshaun Newman plays with me on percussion, and usually Justin Boyd on drums now. So, I mean, this is just like a day in our life if we were preparing for a show. So I came up with an idea of just showing our beautiful city in a warm and inviting way. You know, I love all of the time when you see street performers or just people riding the train. I just wanted them to feel some of the heartbeat of Chicago, and not always hearing about the murders and, you know, the winter. And these are the terrible things that people hear about Chicago, but there's a whole nother beauty to Chicago and the scene that people don't get to see. So I just wanted to share that. And so one or two of the band members had ideas of what locations to shoot in, but basically I offered the idea and they came up with suggestions, because I love to make it a collaborative idea, something to see what everyone wants to do. And they dug it. They like, let's play the song, let's play. And even playing, I've seen people play on trains. I love I love the way that Chicago and New York just have like the trains and buses and streets come to life with live performances. So I on that too.
Well, the city really did come through in that video. I love, especially when it's dark and the lights are behind you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Jonathan Woods shot that video.
Jonathan Woods? He's here in Chicago?
Yes, very talented. He works with a lot of organizations and individuals as well. Very talented brother.
So let me ask you, going back to writing, I think that, obviously there's a little bit of a difference between writing spoken word and poetry and song. So one of the things I think that young people sometimes want to know is, how important is it to use poetic devices when you are writing poetry and or spoken word? What do you think about that?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. How important is it to use poetic devices to reinforce the message when you're writing poetry or spoken word? What do you think? Do you think it's really important that people pay attention to that and try and use, certain poetic devices? Or do you think sometimes just basically what your own words are without a focus on that come through?
That's a good question too. I mean, I feel like when people speak from their heart in their own vernacular, it's because it's unique to them.
Sure.
It's unique to them. It's something that only they would say. And so that's poetry in a way. And this is how I try to introduce it to young people who say, I've never written a poem. I don't know how to write a poem.
Right.
You're always writing poems. You just don't write them down.
Yes.
You're always saying something poetic, or you're saying something that's unique and creative, and that's where you start to find fuel. But I also love poetic devices because I think it allows you to go deeper into some of your ideas and to create sharper images. So I think a combination of both is when you're really writing and you're really being serious about crafting, about your craft, and about making it as unique to you as possible, but also challenging yourself to push yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that when you first started singing in church choirs that you were really, really, really nervous.
Yes.
So do you still get nervous when you perform live?
No, I'm not nervous I don't get so nervous anymore. Now I'm excited. I'm anxious more like,
Yeah.
I've got so much to share. You know, when I first started, and I'm sorry, I brain farted. That video that you just played, Taboo, that was Daryl Parham. That was not
Okay.
all my other ones, and he's an amazing guy too. But I just want to shout out Daryl Parham.
Shout out to both of them. Okay.
Yeah. I always feel like I need to share what I'm actually going through. I think that's my responsibility, you know, to share what I'm going through. I can only be honest and authentic to my experience. And so I always try to center that when I'm approaching a space to create. What exactly are you feeling? Honor that. Like, is it pain? Is it love? Is it anger? Like, what is it?
Right. Yeah. And so I'm glad that you just described all that, because I know that when I talk to young people in the same way that you do, they're so nervous to write because they think they have to rhyme.
Yes.
And, you know, they think that it has to be done a certain way. And I think it's great that you are mentioning the importance of really just getting your feelings out and your emotions, and that can come across as well.
And rhyme is one type of poetic style. Hip hop is a style. Rhyme is a poetic style. There's so many other devices in poetry. So you don't have to rhyme. I tell them poems don't have to rhyme. If you just wanted to write what you were feeling right now, that's called a free write. And that's also, or stream of consciousness, that's also a poetic style. So you just find the style or the technique that really speaks to you and where you're right now. When you're in a real place of anger, you're not trying to rhyme. You're just trying to get it out.
Right. Yeah.
Not happy right now, you know,
Exactly.
and that rhymes with now. You just
totally. Yes.
get it out. And then later, if you want to go back to it and recraft it, reorganize it so that it is rhyming, or that it's telling a deeper story, or that it's more to it, more layers, that you are always welcome to go and draft poetry. And I am just so grateful to have poetry communities internationally that I can go to and say, read this. What do you think of this? And this is really it's a beautiful thing to have, because it helps challenge you. And why did you say that? Is this really what you want to be expressing to your audience? Because I got it. And this is a viewpoint that you don't get when you only read your own work and you only, you don't hold space for other criticism. Now, I'm not saying work out there and then just let people say, this is terrible. You know, it's not about that. It's about you being open enough, because we're all sensitive about our stuff, but being open enough to say, I see what you mean there. Like, that is a good point. Or no, well, that's not really where I'm trying to go. And I mean, you are essentially, hopefully, one of the final editors, unless you have other editors who are like, Chris, scratch out.
Exactly. Well, you know what? That being said, would you venture to say that you revise what you write often?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. And even the pieces that I've written, say, 20 years ago. I just did a quarantine concert. And so I had a lot of quarantine pieces that I wrote, but then I realized I have this piece about police brutality that I wrote in 2003. And so when I bring it out now, I kind of edit it a little bit, because although we still have police brutality, there are different levels to it now that I can actually add. And even when I'm writing a piece right now, every day I look at it and I change a line here, I edit something over there. I don't know if it's ever ready. It's just a time when I have to say, okay, I think I've done all I can do with it in this moment, and I released it.
And then the world throws us a curveball, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's a piece to write, and then I can add the rest of that emotion that I probably didn't get to in that one. Because unfortunately, as far as police brutalities go and all of these violent acts that are happening, unfortunately, we don't even get a chance to rest from it. It's another one and then another one. So if there's a name that I'm trying to call out, or it's always another name, and that's what's sad, is it's always another name.
You know, it's interesting that you just said that, and you know what? Let's talk about this for a quick second. I was thinking about that the other day, and this is, you know, a horrible thing to say, but I was trying to remember names, but then I was trying to remember cities, and it's really horrible because there have been so many cities and so many names of Black people that have suffered from police brutality. And I was just thinking, this is nuts. I have to sit here and think, wait, was it Minneapolis or was it Atlanta? Did it happen? So, you know, that being said, this is a very, very traumatic time for Black people, although it has been for a very long time. What are some things that need to happen now, do you think, with the recent events that have occurred? What do you think could happen or should happen?
I think, as I think about it and I sit in my silence, I think what should happen is that Black people should make sure that they're saying how they feel, because what happens is we always are told to swallow our trauma. Don't say how you feel. Okay, well, why are you still angry? And we're made to feel anything but worthy of the emotions that we hold, or like we never get validated for why we feel the way we feel. It's just, why are you feeling? So I feel like honor your feelings, make time to sit in silence and to really examine your feelings and what is going on with yourself, and then find a creative way to express that, because that is where healing comes in. When you can actually transfer that energy into something positive, because it's a darkness, and that's when we know we're alchemists. It's when we can take this lead and then transform it to gold. And I really believe that the arts is one of the better ways to do that. And I feel like not only can you take something that is almost dead and corroded and make it bring life to other people. I mean, how many other forms can you take something like that and do that? So I feel like that's one thing. And that's for Black people. That's for us. For us to do is just be able to rest, be able to feel like you are heard, we know, and get a group hug, a virtual hug. And then White people to really start to listen to their Black friends and really start to listen to the Black people in their world and hear them. And, you know, hearing just means that you close the mouth portal and open the ear portal. It doesn't even mean you have to necessarily fix anything. It's just a listening, so that you can better understand someone's pain and someone's position. And I think that more empathy is what needs to happen.
Yes, I agree. I think empathy is something that we really lack. You said something, though, that gave me the chills a couple of minutes ago. Well, you always say things that give me the chills. But you said something, one sentence that really got to me, and that's people are always asking, why are you still angry? And I cringe when I hear people say that about African-American people and their strife. I just think it's a horrible statement.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's totally like we don't have a reason to be angry. Like, right. Next year will be 100 years of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now that is self-sustained Black community, Black living, people who are Black Wall Street was what they called it, and bombed by their own government. And this is something that it just adds more trauma bonds. It just creates more trauma and more PTSD. And then people say, why are you angry? And then, I'm always colored, for lack of a better word, you know. So I'm always painted as the angry Black woman when I try to do something. And then that's also kind of like starting to get boring. It's like, okay, yeah, but did I make any sense to the point that I made? Did you hear anything that I said? Even if I'm not saying it in an angry tone, it's like, well, are you okay? It's like, then that becomes the thing and not what I'm actually talking about. So I feel like keep people on target. I feel like the only way we can deal with what's happening in this country, in this world, is if we keep people honest. And part of that is being 100% fully present in your own struggle and saying, listen, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is where I'm at. This is what needs to happen. And then at a point, you just let what's going to happen, because control people. We can't control organizations. All we can do is be our best self and hope that people want to do that too. And then that we have a better world when everyone is in the same heart and mind space, trying to be a better person. Because when people say, "Oh, that's my job," yeah, but you're a person, so you don't have to just do what your job says. If your job is really hurting people, if
Right.
it's in people's rights, then you have to really evaluate: is this job something I want to do? Because Hitler, people were doing a job for him too. You know what I mean? So you have to really understand: is this a job that I want to be doing? Do I want to be on this side of history when it's all said and done?
Right.
And that's what we need to be thinking about, our own accountability in this, because our children, our children's children, even if you don't have children, the people that you influence, they're going to look to you and say, well, what did you do when all this was happening? How did you help or hurt? Or even if you didn't do anything, you did something, which was to say it's okay with me, and I'm going to let it continue by not doing anything. So your position is a position, that you take.
Absolutely. So now that we've gotten into that big discussion, I think it's appropriate to play another one of your songs called "Don't Mind Them."
Which is what I have with all these people when they come with that, and I say, "Don't mind them."
I know, I love it. So first of all, let's play it, and then we want to ask you, how did you come up with that little phrase? Because again, that's a creative writing style. So let's go ahead and play that video.
Wicked. Child must be in the gene. They have so much greed, speak of so much need. Don't honor kind, he can understand how the good will leave the land, but don't mind them, they kind you so spared. Don't mind them, the evil they do will find them. Don't mind them, I beg, they kind you so spared. I beg, don't mind them. The evil they do will find them, don't mind them. I beg, they kind you so spare. I beg, don't mind them. I beg, evil they do will find them. Don't mind them, don't mind them. Don't mind them, don't mind them. Don't mind them. down when you're upbeat or you're married. Boy, when things are good, they don't want to talk about it. Let things go wrong and they love to scream and shout it. Maybe one day they'll be okay, but I doubt it. I doubt it, Joe, but don't mind them. Don't mind them, I beg. They're kind, you so stay, I beg. Don't mind them, I beg. Evil they do, mind them. Mind them, don't mind them. Mind them, don't mind them. Don't mind them. Mind them. The evil they do. The evil they do. The evil they do. The evil they do, fine. The evil they do. The evil they do. The evil they do. The evil they do, fine. Don't mind them. Don't mind them. Don't mind them. Don't mind them.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Where did you find those dancers?
So this is one community is so amazing. These are women that I've known because I dance with them. I'm in a community of dancers. I dance with them. So I met Tasha and Imania when they were dancing with Muntu before they started their own company, Ayodele. So we all would dance every Saturday. I would take them to workshop for like 8 years. And so, just meet people, you vibrate with them, and you're on a like path and a like mission. So I love the way Tasha and Amania dance. They are some of my favorite dancers in the city. And so I had this idea to bring this African indigenous aesthetic. And I wanted to recreate what would look like Africa, but we were right here in Chicago.
Yes.
Because Chicago is so amazing with all its rich natural habitats. And so Jonathan Woods knew of a beautiful tucked away area just right behind the museum. And so we set it up, and it was our little Kalakuta Republic. It was like our little, and so we did that. And we were just trying to tell a lot of stories in the video of like, I'm a big proponent. I'm a Cancer, I have a birthday in a few days. I love humanity. I'm a nurturer. And so I just want to see the world that I keep talking about. Like when I was a young girl, it wasn't the perfect world, but I just remember there being a lot more warmth and a lot more love. And it wasn't perfect, but it was a better world. And so I'm just going back to that. And so I used a lot of references to GMO frankenfoods. You see the how we are creating this evil world, or this it's people doing that. It's not just, or people make up organizations. So I'm showing how even with technology, you see people walking like zombies, and then you see them having human interaction, humans sitting on benches, looking at each other, not at their phone, but at each other, connecting with each other in a real way. And that's the message that I wanted to bring in. And don't mind those people who just try to alienate us and keep us at each other's throats and keep us sick and all those ideas.
I love that. The evil they do. Yeah. So a couple of more quick questions about that. And then we want to give you some time to perform. Who chose the clips, the video clips?
I'm sorry.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, Jonathan and I there's so much information I was trying to put out there, and he is so wonderful. If you've ever worked with him, he's a great listener. He listens to what you're trying to do, and then he says, okay, I've got some ideas. So he used a lot of stock images, and but I was sharing with him what the vision of what I was trying to do. So he did a wonderful job creating that.
Yeah, it was very powerful with the black and white clips with the cops, and it was, and then you see these beautiful women, and were those also clothing from Africa, or were they from here?
Yeah, so that's some performance gear that they would wear when they're performing as
beautiful.
It's tribal, indigenous, what the women would wear if they were performing, years ago. So it's a throwback to indigenous culture, but it's a performance look as well. So some sometimes if I'm performing live, sometimes they may come with me and they'll dress up the part, and
I love that.
To ancient African time when things were
It's just so beautiful. The textiles and the clothing, just beautiful. Well, listen, we would love to continue talking, but time went by really fast.
Yeah,
and we'd love to have you perform. So I'm going to pull myself out of the picture here and let you take over.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeannie. I guess the first piece I'm going to do is a song. I'm going to do a song called Breathe. I'm going to play the track and then I'm going to sing the song. So this song was created on my second album, Don't Mind Them. I'm sorry. The second album is called Ashe, Afro and Afro Soul Effect. The Afro Soul Ensemble is the band. Afro Soul Effect is what happens after you hear us. And so this one is called Breathe, especially right now, with respect to the brothers who have fallen, George Floyd, Eric Garner, who couldn't breathe. It's more important for us to find spaces where we can breathe and where we can be ourselves and where we can be able to inhale and exhale. So this is that piece. This is my band playing. If they were here, this is what they would be playing. Respect to them. Oh, sorry. Live. Run that again. My hand did that. I was talking to my best friend about this newfound trend to get the next man. Where are the X-Man? Cause we need some superheroes in the ghetto to alleviate the suffering. Stop this throbbing ache when I wake like they was bluffing. No, I'm not bluffing. A sacred stiletto. She say, if you think you can move the sun, show me how it's done. Come on, get on a ladder and change its position in the sky if you dare try. Why must you question the cure to deliver you from stress? Relax, relate, release, and breathe. There's nowhere else to go but peace. You've been down that road before, and you know where it leads. Don't you want something more soul-centered and free? Ooh, yeah. As I'm cruising down the Dan Ryan, saw a brother swerving through lanes just like a bad line. Out of his damn mind, he hit me pretty hard when I crossed Rush Meadow. Like a child out on a rampage, he acted much too young for his age. He should have burned sage. What's with the road rage? He shook me pretty bad, but when my nerves began to settle, I said, if you think you can move the sun, show me how it's done. Come on, get on a ladder and change its position in the sky if you dare try. Why must you question the cure to deliver you from stress? Find free, breathe deep and hold. Poison within, destined to fail. Go out on the exhale. You've been down that road before, and you know where it leads. Don't you want something more soul-centered and free? Find free and breathe. Nowhere left to go but peace. Whoa. You got to find free. Why must you question the cure to deliver you from stress? find free, breathe deep and hold. Poison within, destined to fail. Go out on the exhale. You've been down that road before, and you know where it leads. Don't you want something more? Soul centered and free. Ooh, breathe. Oh, 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 oh. I'm gonna take a deep breath. Breathe. There's nowhere left to go but peace. You've been down that road before, and you know where it leads. Don't you want something more? Soul centered and free. Ooh, breathe. Oh, let us breathe. We will breathe again. Let's breathe. Let's breathe. Breathe. Let's get free, find free, and breathe. Find free, breathe deep and hold. Breathe deep and hold on to your heart and guard your heart, and breathe. That's it, thank you. That's that piece. That's the first one. So the rest of the pieces I'm going to do are poems. I thank you for your time. I thank you for this opportunity, Jeannie, for, to be able to speak to people and share with people in this amazing and scary time to be alive, frankly. The next two poems I'm going to do are poems that I've written during this COVID. And so I'm going to share them with you. This is one, it's called Bullseye, and I wrote this piece after George Floyd's murder. There is an energy in the air, whipping the wind like an angry master, ready to feast, taste the blood of the righteous. It's open season on Black brothers, sisters too. Some lynches are high profile and some we never knew. Will we ever learn the true number of our dead? Babylon buried in shallow graves. These sacred spirits need justice, rest, peace. Streets want your firstborn to slaughter. Could be your son or daughter, as long as their skin summons the sun, rise, set, Beats melanin, come out and slay. He, she, or they will get the trouble the world can create. You are just that great. I used to call it hate, but now I see it clear as fear. Anger lingers like a swirl of toxic smoke over a looted Target store. Like clockwork, I see another target, black body lifeless after interfacing with police, dead from heavy weight of privilege on neck or pulled trigger. I am triggered. I am triggered. I remember slave patrol. My body grows cold. This might be 2020, but it feels like 1919. How many names do we have to say for you to see us as human beings? You pull your hoses and guns on our righteous seeds. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Let my people grow old. The fear that grips this nation reeks of genetic annihilation, and I am tired of having to explain my pain to people who are determined to misunderstand. I am a good citizen. I have never stolen land, but I have been stolen. I have never killed a man. I have no blood on my hands, but I die every day in the worst way. That is dedicated to all of the people who have died and all those who will die as the death toll continues to rise. This last poem I'm going to do is called Healville. And I wrote this as a response. Someone called me and asked me if I would write a poem of what healing looks like. And I had to think about it. What does that look like? Because everyone has a different version of what is wrong, a different idea of what is wrong and what needs to be fixed. So this is my version of what healing looks like. I call it Healville. Out of the rubble of a shaken nation, African-born, dab, African-bred store owners meet and greet. Replace Arab face behind bulletproof counter of hood gas station. The Chinese smirk from clerk at nail shop is no more. The new store is owned by a Moor. A community is mine when I hold the deed, or some random brown sugar mahogany, spreading sweet vibes, fresh organic foods, and grocery services like contagion. If I share a park bench with Becky, she doesn't conjure Karen. We continue sharing in God's blessed creation. Just one day of not having to beg for my life, I can walk with ease through city streets. No more police, no more trepidation. A truly civilized nation where the people have the power. I can breathe and be Black at the same time. Not treated like a murderer when I committed no crime. If you haven't had your heart broken by a system or shattered by uniformed men in blue, then you won't understand what my people go through. I am spirit who refused to be slave, lay down life to build masses' pride. I once was so self-high, legend read I could fly. Today, I cry rivers over waves of oppression and genocide. Let the flood grace my face, pour onto page. I rage, slice governments to shreds with words I have said. Author journals of atonement for their forefathers' sins, dripping in fresh bloodthirst as vile as Minutemen. As vile Minutemen etch my effort under government skin. The empire can strike back, but it will never forget the day we met. Pen be a sharp machete. I offer random acts of self-love when I fight back. I offer random acts of self-love when I fight Black. Give hugs even in Corona season, if the energy is pleasing. It's a spiritual war for the morals and reason of man. When evil blackens ventricles, leak poison darks into streams of thoughts, I remember who and whose I am. Stand like Iroko tree in childhood memory, plant feet in soul of earth, give birth to a movement denouncing white privilege and global terrorism, respecting Black life unapologetically. I grab my pen, clean slate, envision a greater globe for Black babies, spin earth on its axis, build this universe within my verse. Energy transmutations change vibrations. I smile at my reflections. Through masks with wide eyes, homeowners who are their brother's keepers, citywide, multiplied by 100. It don't matter what they say. We beautiful when we shine. Use resources, divine forces, lay at my feet to enhance understanding of how to live and what to eat. Grace is a place I visit often. Rising above storms that form, dodging despair is an important step on the road to self-care. Learning how to let go of centuries of tragedy lived in this body, surrendering only to God and the beat of a heart synchronizing with my own in a peaceful home. I bury the dead in my bone that never knew a country, who live in the blood that boils, then bleeds out on concrete slabs as final resting places. Truth, courage, justice, and reparations positively position puzzle pieces fit. Restore image of Black people thinking, loving, reading, laughing, building community, praying, winning, fighting oppression together, not each other forever. Forgiveness. This could be our new reality. Let's come up with a strategy before all that's left is regret. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Wait, don't go anywhere. That was just too absolutely fabulous. We can't let you leave. First of all, the line, I can breathe and be Black at the same time gave me the chills.
Yeah.
And I could see that in all kinds of protests on somebody's holding, on someone's board. Is that, how long did it take you to write that? Did that just come out? Were there revision? I mean, it was absolutely incredible.
Thank you. That took about 48 hours. It was more of a rant. And then I had to chisel it into a poem because it was just like pages of.
So you might have 3 more poems in there, unless you used up everything.
I mean, I could actually say 1 and 2. And the first poem, I broke it into 2 sections. I just didn't read it that way, but it's like part 1 and part 2. And I feel like this poem could go on forever because healing is something that's not going to be in a day. It's not a destination, it's a process. And so this is something that's going to happen over time. And so this might be one of those poems that never ends because every day I might have to add something to what healing looks like for me because every day is a different approach to it.
Wow. So, okay, one last little, I usually throw out one question at artists, and just off the top of your head, what lyric resonates to you from another artist? What's a lyric that another artist has written that you just think is so powerful or that just resonates with you right now as we're speaking?
If I'm thinking about Fela, Suffering and Smiling. I think that song is what I think that America expects Black people to do. It's just suffer and smile. Like we're not ever supposed to be fed up. We're not ever supposed to feel like this is too much. Where is the change? When is it going to change? We're just supposed to be happy. And if we're not happy, then the questions are like, well, what's wrong? Haven't things been great for you? When no one really looks to see how we are systemically being targeted and taken out. And so I feel like that song, a lot of Fela's works are so timeless. And this was about a whole other country. This is what America. And the fact that I could even contextualize his music that was made decades ago and it can actually speak to what's happening to us now. I just don't have much faith in governments across the globe. I just don't know. This is like a problem that is just not happening in America. I have friends from all over the United States, all over the world, and they're actually saying to me, Ugochi, are you okay? These are places that people feel like they're third world countries. They should be afraid. And they're like, I hear Chicago is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I know. It's
really interesting how we have been made to feel, this is America, the first world country. We're great. And our own person acting as president, because I don't think he's been a president since he's been in office, but the person acting as president had the nerve to call these other countries who have been dealing with COVID and who don't even have active cases of COVID and haven't had all these deaths. He called them shithole countries.
Right.
And look at us. I mean, what are we becoming? So I just find it very interesting. These times that we are in right now, wow. If we don't see that things need to change, I don't know when we'll ever see it.
I know, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's well. Okay, so lastly, what's next for you?
Oh wow, so many things. I've been so blessed to be able to be in this world in this time as an artist. So many things. I'm working on a film project that's called Red Summer Winter Blues, and it's actually talking about the riots in 1919 that were setting up these race issues around the world. And we were doing this film trying to ask, is this a question of that needs to be addressed? And now, I mean, it's just been blown up this year. How no one can avoid the reality of the fact that we have real race problems. Before when we were doing this film, it was to highlight what happened in the Chicago riots in 1919 and the race and how it exploded in Chicago, but then also to kind of question what is happening. But now there's no question what's happening. It's just, when is it going to stop? So I feel like that's a beautiful project. I'm very honored to be a part of creating original music for this film that is going to just really look at race in this country in a way that is such a deep, focused lens. And they're actually using a lot of devices that I find very creative, 365 degree like imaging through the film. They're also using color correction to add color to these black and white images. And, will you be able to tell what's today, what's then, if it's, colored? I mean, it's going to really go a way to let you see this. Not much has happened, but time has changed. Is
there a title to the film yet?
Red Summer Winter Blues.
That's what you said. Red Summer Winter Blues. Okay. And when is that anticipated to come out? Do you know?
In 2021. So now we're looking at it coming out in 2021. It was to come out this year, but then COVID kind of complicated some things with its completion.
Okay. That sounds really interesting. Yeah. And are you writing music or spoken word or both?
So it's music. So there's different artists are doing different things. I'm actually doing both because I do. I've written a piece called If We Must Die, and it's in homage of the poem that Claude McKay wrote over 100 years ago about the riots.
Yes.
And so we're writing it today, myself and two other artists who are also creating content in the voice of today. So we have the honor, the privilege to voice for our generation and for all of those people who have been living this reality. So it's a huge honor and it's a huge responsibility. And I'm just very blessed to be in that space where I can actually say, okay, this is for the race. This is for all those who couldn't say it, who couldn't express it. So I'm blessed for that. And then I'm just doing a lot of I'm creating a book of poems that I'm going to be putting out because it's about time.
Yeah, you must have, wow. That's going to be a big book.
Yeah, I've also created my own a form called the EK. EK is an Igbo word that means power. So it came out of the whole Black Lives Matter eruption in 2015, and it's just basically it's like a style similar to like a haiku, but it's Black power, red, black, and green. Red, 3 syllables. The first line, black, is 5 syllables, the second line, and black and is 8 syllables, I'm sorry, and then green is 5. So it's 3-8-5 as opposed to the 5-7-5 haiku style. And it's really just Black love, Black power, Black redemption, Black liberation to basically combat those negative images that we see all the time through the media that we're always reinforced with, that we always have to see of ourselves. So this was a way that we could create a whole nother reality through, again, we can do this as writers. We can create a whole nother world than the one we're actually living in. And that's the brilliance of it.
That's so true. I wish that it would, though, like all of a sudden the world would change once your words come out.
Well, I think that art can inform life. And so this is the part, that the seeds that you plant within people and how it can change them. It's just an idea. And so I'm hoping that too, Jean. I put all that kind of sprinkle on top of everything before I...
Right.
That even if it just if it influences one person to change, that is a major thing, and that's something that we should not take lightly. change is beautiful, and no matter how small.
Well, that's a great way to end this. We want to thank you so much, Ugochi, for joining us. You are beautiful. Your music is fabulous. And it's just been an absolute pleasure. I'd like to just bring on Susan from DK's for a quick second so she can say a little goodbye as well.
I just want to say thank you. Oh my gosh, for holding this space for us and bringing us all together when we've been feeling so physically distant, but now really socially connecting. And as you pointed out, reconnecting with our humanity. Yes. And your haunting words, luscious voice just has moved me so much, And I want to thank you and invite you to come back and do some more things with us, Something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and other people also talking about artists as second responders, So now that people are alive, now let's really talk about humanity. And so thank you for letting us have this moment and to let us breathe. Thank you. Indeed.
And I love what you said. And I feel like the artists have been actually resuscitating people. I mean, DJs, performances, that's been what's been keeping us alive and letting us see our humanity through other people's lens. So it's such an amazing, powerful thing. And I thank you for giving space for Jean to do this work and just for all both to have a space to come and speak. Thank you.
Just the
love and happiness, Al Green.
Bye.
All right. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Ugochi. Thanks, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it and hope that you will share this with your friends, relatives, etc. We are moving our series to Fridays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time beginning July 10th. We will be having more people in the music industry to chat with and other artists. Hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend. Bye, everybody.